Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another mystery hour. I don't even know. We have to think about the nicknames of the things that we're doing. For example, our matching t-shirts that say "We are not detectives." Again, we got these before this even existed, which just feels right. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and of course, my co-host, Christy Oxborough. Christy, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just happy to be here.
What you drinking tonight?
You know what? It was such a home run for me last time. I stuck with a Pombe.
I don't know if you can get them down here because I love a Pombe, especially in the summer. So for the Americans who are listening, I'm not sure, maybe it's just regional or not, but I am very jealous. I'm going to say that much.
Well, I also have the frozen ones in the freezer.
Yeah.
So it's like a dirty Slurpee, if you can call it.
That was my nickname in high school. See you later. Good night.
Heyo.
Heyo. The dirty Slurpee. It does sound like a weird sex move, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I kind of regretted it the second it came out.
Nah, you're just creating things. You're a renegade.
Yeah, I can't be stopped.
I wouldn't want to stop you.
Right.
What am I drinking, you may ask? Oh, I've classed it up tonight. I'm going with a nice crisp white wine, and I have it here just within arm's reach in my ice bucket. You know what I mean? Just a nice crisp white. They don't sponsor us, but if they'd like to, please get a hold of us because I'm a big fan of your product, Matua. Anyway, it's a Sauvignon Blanc.
If anybody wants to sponsor, I'll drink anything.
You have already communicated to me that you're willing to wear almost any product's hats during recordings.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Look, and what I like is that you're open to any and all sponsorships.
You got to keep yourself open. I've been in this game long enough now to know.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It's been 6 weeks?
Easily 5. Yeah.
And listen, every week, I feel like, again, you're up in your game. You're getting the swing of things. I think it's a beautiful journey to watch. You go from cocoon to butterfly. Sorry, caterpillar to butterfly. I skipped a step.
That's really beautiful. But wouldn't it be me to skip a step? That does feel right. To not do things in the order you're supposed to.
It would be either of us, really. Now, we were talking about, again, how is it that we've just discovered in the past, couple of months that we share this love of true crime and all things intrigue? And then you reminded me that in high school, we catfished before catfishing was even a thing. Years before.
Yes. Yeah. Now, make sure you say nobody got hurt.
Of course.
We were specifically catfishing to find out if my boyfriend was cheating on me.
Listen, and we essentially, again, catfishing for good, because it wasn't, we weren't doing anything malicious or anything like that. But I think the details are really amazing. And you were at my house, and I remember we were going through some sort of teen magazines, like 17 YM. I think Teen was the one that maybe we got it from. We found this picture of this very pretty blonde girl. And so we scanned it because we cut it out and scanned it. This is in the day of scanners. But then it looked too much like it was from a magazine. So we turned it into black and white. And it was like, oh, this is great. It looks like a yearbook photo. This is what we're thinking. So what do you remember? Was it ICQ or MSN? Was it a chat? Where did we put this profile?
My heart says ICQ.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that. In the day. I don't know why I felt the need to say in the day. I don't have it now either.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Well, but I want to say ICQ, because I think you had it.
Yeah.
And we
found him on it or something.
I think that was it. I think we may have looked on both, found him, and then we're like, oh, well, we're going to put this photo on a fish hook and cast it out and see what happens.
Yeah. And well, let us tell you, dear listeners, we found out what happened, which was he took the bait immediately.
Absolutely he did. What a fucker, right?
Yes. And didn't he also call the picture out fairly quickly into your conversation?
Yeah. I mean, he knew right away something was sketchy about it. And it was just like your photo doesn't look real, or something's wrong with your photo. And it was just like, oh, it's a yearbook. I scanned it, and I don't know how we played off that it looked the way that it did, but he was like, I don't know if that's really real. But then he was just like, but who fucking cares? How you doing? You know, like he just stepped over it after
and
caring.
So often when you hear cases of catfishing, that exact thing happens. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that show. I watch a lot of it, but I also love that people often are like, yeah, did I think it probably wasn't her? Yeah, but then I thought maybe it could be and it's worth the risk. Like, I love that part of the brain that's like, this tells me this isn't real, but there's a chance it could be. I mean, and also it sounds insane. I understand. Yeah. I'm sure it sounds insane to people that we could potentially get away with saying we scanned a yearbook photo, but keep in mind, this was a time that was even pre-digital camera. This was when we were still dealing with real film and photographs. So look, did most teenage girls not have any photographs of themselves? No, we all had photographs of ourselves, but I do think that it, as opposed to now, it feels like it was a more plausible fib. It was a flat out lie. What am I calling us a fib for? I mean, come on.
Well, we were doing it for good. We weren't in the wrong. And I will die on this mountain. We were not in the wrong. The only person we were in contact with was that deadbeat.
Yes.
We only wanted to see, is he going to go for the bait?
Yes.
He did. I think he also admitted to like having multiple girls that he was with and shit like that. I mean,
well, he definitely
he
said
was the bad guy there.
He was the bad guy. We were the Robin Hoods of catfishing.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. But I do have to say that what you just said was actually untrue, because he wasn't the only person we catfished. He was the only person we catfished with this profile. But I don't know if you remember.
Who else did we catfish?
It was the same. It was within the same few days. But her name, also for the people who are wondering, we decided her name was Allison, and so we made her handle AllieCat6. Was it AllieCat69?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like Allie_cat_69, because you know she was a grown-up.
Of course. Oh my gosh. But we had gone on to ICQ, which for people who don't know, if there's some younger listeners, it's like a chat thing. It's like almost, I don't even know what a similar thing would be to it now. God, that's weird. But it was like you chat with random people. You can chat with your own friends, but you can also make friends. So it's kind of like WhatsApp, I guess, is now, if you were using WhatsApp to also meet people. I don't know if people do that or not. But there was a random thing where you could click a button, you could choose the gender you were looking for, the age bracket, and then like click like random. So we put it to like 60-year-old men and like random. And then what we were doing was also technically for good, because we were trying to catch predators, but also like not knowing what we're doing, not being able to like in any way follow through. And then I'll never forget, we used to have this bit where it was like, if we found someone attractive, it would be like, oh, my hips, like, oh my, that was like our running bit. Like, oh, my hips
still
are calling for, absolutely. My hips are calling for him, or something like that. And so we were talking to this one stranger, who knows, and keep in mind, there's no photos being used at this point on either end. And you said something about like, I have a problem with my hips. And then at the end, he was like, I hope your hips feel better. I like totally bought that. But most of the conversations didn't get creepy at all, except for one. And I remember there was something that was said, and then he said, I don't remember what it was, but he said something so creepy, and we both screamed and like smashed the keyboard. We're like, exit out. And it was like, we're not built to catch predators. We weren't ready yet.
We're not meant for it. No, we're meant to do the groundwork and then send somebody else in to catch them.
Exactly. And now
so we're
roughly
like to research a predator.
Okay. To find the library cards of predators.
Absolutely. I could do that.
Yeah. But now what I think is nice is that roughly 25 years later, we are getting our due, and we're having the opportunity to research predators, but not at all try and capture them, which is great.
Right. And now I am so confident that we don't have to try and catfish my husband, and that feels great.
That's nice. That
is nice. I hope that other guy is alone.
I am certain that that's true. And I also think it would be weird if you didn't already know. Have you not looked him up?
I looked him up years ago on Facebook because I was young and innocent and didn't know any other way to search for a person online. I've grown. since then, obviously.
Of course.
But he had like zero social media presence.
Huh.
So I don't know. Like he was from a small town in the middle of nowhere, so maybe he just never got into it.
Or maybe he died. And I say that I always think that though. Like I'm like, what are the chances that you'll have absolutely no footprint?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the internet?
Yeah, I found the first boy I kissed when I was 5 years old. I found him online. He doesn't have social media, but like he again lived in a small town. The local co-op had a photo of him in like the local like newspaper, and he was tagged in it, and that's how I ended up finding him. So he's alive.
Wasn't his name Christopher?
It was.
Steel trap, old Ash.
It is. That is very impressive.
Listen, that one stuck with me. It also stuck with me once that you had a friend, I think, who was named Christine or something, and then she had a crush on Chris Elliott, and then it would be like, oh, if we got together, we'd both be named Chris. I don't know.
Sounds right.
These are the weird things that stick into my brain. Can I tell you something that happened to me last week? No. But can I recall the name of the first boy you ever kissed? Absolutely.
Oh my God. We were supposed to have a meeting online, like a Zoom meeting today, with our kids' teacher to like tell us about the school year. She told us this morning at like 9, sent the Zoom link and was like 2:00 this afternoon. Do you think I remember that? Nope. If you played some Say My Name, Destiny's Child right now, I could tell you all the lyrics, but I couldn't for the life of me remember, like 5 hours away. And then it wasn't until like tonight where I went, shit, that was today, wasn't it? He's like, she did send it this morning. I'm like, son of a bitch. Well, missed that. Oh, well.
Listen, you know what? We're doing our best. We're trying the best we can. And let me tell you, you do exceptionally exceed your best when you research cases, which brings us to today's episode of this show. We're in the dark. It is the nighttime. We have our sleepover shirts. We've got our drinks, and it is time to discuss the Unsolved Mysteries episode entitled Missing Witness. I don't know if maybe we'll edit in like a music sting there or something. I don't know. Like, I just feel like it felt like it was like, da-da-da! Like, didn't it feel like there was an opportunity for that?
Absolutely. Some bass, like maybe like a little like thundery rumble, like a what's going on, like something on the horizon is about to come in. I got very excited because, as you know, I care a lot about the sound.
You do. She is always committed to no ice in her cups, to not making sure she's shuffling papers. Meanwhile, I'm over here. I've got ice buckets sloshing around. I'm pouring glasses of wine. And I mean, look, I do this for, I do voice work all the time. I should know better. But listen, I think that it's great that you've got the commitment and that you've learned so quickly. Not from me, clearly.
Oh, I learn many a thing from you. You are a seasoned professional at this. And, this is just your moment where you get to just relax,
Lay back.
sit back, have a good time,
Well, you're going to love this segue. You know who didn't have a good time? The victims in today's case. Oh my gosh.
That was smooth.
Thank you so much. But yes, so this episode, I believe it was the last episode that aired of the new Netflix Unsolved Mysteries episodes they came out with. So this one involved the story of, technically it's two people. I know that it kind of focuses more on Lena, a lady who's gone missing, but there was also, as you kind of watch the episode, you learned that there was actually a gentleman that had gone missing years prior, connected. Her stepdad technically had gone missing years prior, and it kind of comes out that she knew that her mom killed her stepdad. We'll get into all these details as we go, obviously. But then as there was she admitted to her other stepdad. We need to be drawing maps just for this family tree. But Lena had admitted to her first stepdad, Albert, that she had indeed seen evidence. She knew that her mom had killed her second stepdad, Gary, who was technically Albert's brother. The layers to this, again, are nuts. But it was shortly after that, there was a civil suit filed, and Lena, of course, went missing. And we do believe, of course, that the same woman, mother, Sandy, who killed Gary, also obviously killed Lena. So that's what we're dealing with. And this is an interesting case because we already kind of, I mean, is there a possibility somebody else did it? I guess, but we're pretty sure here.
Like, yeah. I mean, there's many reasons why I'm not a cop. But
yes, you've gotten into this before.
But today's reason of why I'm not a cop, I'm very quick to be like, this is what I think about this. No one's changing my mind. There is no way anybody could ever tell me and convince me that it wasn't Sandy who killed both of these people.
Oh yeah.
There's no way.
I think that's fair. There's a lot of details, again, that we can get into that kind of are like all signs are pointing to this.
Oh, 100%. She was crafty. And I should say is, because she's still alive and free and doing whatever the fuck she wants. And
raising Lena's son. This is the other twisted part to all of this, is that it comes out that Sandy had 6 daughters and always apparently talked about how she wanted a son. And then Lena, of course, has this son, Coulter, who now Sandy, the mom who killed Lena, is raising and homeschooling because I'm sure she wants to keep him under, lock and key. I mean, so twisted on so many levels.
Yeah, there's a lot. I've heard, because he was like 3 when this went down, so he was like 2003. So he's like about 16, 17 right now. I've heard that she doesn't allow him a cell phone or the internet. And that up until recently, he truly believed that his grandmother was his mother. And then she finally admitted, oh no, you did have a mother. She was a drug addict and she abandoned you.
Whoa.
Yeah, this girl is a piece of work.
Wow. I mean, listen, it's I don't know how to say this, and I want to preface this by saying that I never judge a woman for almost anything sexually. Anything that you want, that's your prerogative, have at it. But the way that she was kind of painted in this, and I'm not sure if you've done any research to, add to this fuel to this fire or prove that this is wrong, but it really did kind of come out that she was somebody who she could only ever spend like 2 years with a dude, and then she would like jump to somebody else, usually somebody who was already married, usually cheating on her own husband because she was married 5 times. And it's so interesting to me. Like, again, as you know, I always go to the psychology, and I'm just like, what is it about this person that, like, what happened to her to make her programmed this way, to the point also that she would potentially kill, which brings us, of course, to her first victim, Gary, who this was her second husband, but
third husband.
This was her third husband.
Yes.
So there was one before Albert.
Correct.
Okay. And then there was, but wasn't there another baby daddy?
She had a baby.
Right.
And then married somebody else who was not the father.
Got it.
Was with him for several years. I think he's the father of the other 5 daughters.
Wow.
And then, like, when the youngest one was like mere months old, she moved on to Albert.
Right.
So again, I'm with you on, I don't give a shit how many men you want to be with. Totally. I don't care if you want to have 20 children and have each of them have a different father. Good for you. It's a weird choice, but like, it's weird to go into it thinking that do whatever you want.
Right.
I don't care. My issue is that she's gotten away with what she's done, and that really, and like the fact that she, I mean, I'm gonna use the word, she basically kidnapped her own grandson.
Yeah.
Because she was like, oh, I have to have a boy. I've always wanted a boy.
So creepy.
It's a lot.
But what's interesting is that she has 6 kids by the time she meets Albert, and he takes them in the way that he's kind of painted in the documentary, in the episode, is that he's a good guy. And that they all really, all the daughters were like, he was a good stepdad. He was a good guy. Then she starts cheating on him with his brother, Gary, they, tussle, get into a fight. And then the girl, they had to move to another state to be with Gary. And the girls talk about how then they were on a farm and they were working really hard and they all had chores, but that Gary was a good guy. He was never described as being abusive or anything like that. But then, given her pattern, a couple years later, she starts cheating with this guy, Chris. And then it was within a couple months, I think, that all of a sudden, Gary goes missing. And she claimed that he went out of state to buy fighting roosters, which, as an animal rights person, I'm already upset about even the implication that this is happening. I mean,
Yeah,
anyway. And then of course the daughters, there was a couple of them that remembered seeing things that were off, and that she kind of coached the kids to say, if anybody asks you, Gary was gone to this place and you ate spaghetti that night and what have you. But did you learn anything more about Gary? Because I feel like the episode so kind of heavily talked about Lena, the daughter. We didn't really learn a lot about Gary other than he was a farmer. He seemed like he was a pretty good guy. But it did feel like it kind of glossed over his death, which is very sad. If again, randomly she felt like she and her new partner at the time, Chris, felt like they had to kill him to be together. I'm assuming it had to have something to do with that.
Well, I've tried looking up Gary. And yeah, the only things I can find is he had children from a previous marriage. So he did have daughters.
Interesting.
They were the ones who later on in our story sue Sandy and Chris for the wrongful death of their father.
Gotcha.
But he was a father when he met her. And from my understanding, they saw him as like a good role model. He was really kind. He was a hard worker, all this kind of stuff. And I agree that the episode was about 2 murders, but it was mostly like, we're going to really focus on this one because it's her own child. And how could she do that? And so they really just kind of were like, so there was a guy, Gary, he was great, and then he disappeared. And they really just kind of did not go into enough detail. I did reach out to a friend of his in the hopes
this is
that,
amazing.
in just like a hope that somebody, this is what I'm doing. I felt like they didn't really tell us much about him. I just want to know just some more stuff about him personally. They have not gotten back to me, and that's okay. I just need to make my account more professional.
Listen,
I could be I'm a nobody. They're just like, I don't know who you are, and that's more than fine. I just wanted to give him I wanted to paint him in the most appropriate lighting. But from everything I can tell, he was a solid guy, with exception to that pesky cheating with his brother's wife.
Yeah,
that was a downside. But even Albert, his brother, was like, we understood, we moved on from that.
Right.
Like, he is just like, I get it. I wasn't enough for her. And you know what, Albert, if you're listening, which you're not, but if you are, you deserve better than her.
Yeah.
And this isn't about you. This is about her.
It really is.
It seems like it's just a game to her, where she goes from one guy to the next. It seems like every 2 years, like it was she marries Albert in 94. Then 2 years later, well, I guess it's like a year and a half later, she leaves him for Albert. And then like 6 months later, she leaves him for Gary. And then 6 months later, she marries Gary. And then 3 years into their marriage, not even 3, more like 2.5, she suddenly is like stepping out and seeing somebody else. I mean, one of her own daughters describes her as like, she's really good at getting what she wants from men. It's not about money. It's about a challenge of getting the man, even if they're married. And then once she gets them, then it's like, well, I've got that. Now what? So then she finds something on the side, which is a whole other thing. And like,
this is for sure a personality disorder. Like, at the very minimum, somebody who is like completely obsessed with the chase and getting what they want. And then when they actually do, they get bored. That's got to be on that spectrum somewhere. Now, so it was Lena who ultimately she had described, and Brandy, I believe, is her other sister and then Robin is the other sister. So these are the main sisters that we're talking about. Robin said she saw Gary's body wrapped up in like some sort of carpet with his feet hanging out, and that they burned the body. She says that Robin says she saw that. Brandy described seeing her mother cleaning like what seemed to be blood off of the floor. Lena described, because Albert, for whatever reason, which is interesting, she came to talk to Albert and he secretly recorded the conversation. So there was this recording of Lena saying, my mom did this. I know, here are the details, which is so interesting. That he felt that he wanted to do that. But she was pretty young at that point, right? Even at that point, she was pregnant, I believe, at that time, which makes me wonder if she felt like she needed to come clean because she was pregnant. And I'm sure you've got a lot of emotions going through you as a mother. You could speak to that more. But it's interesting to me that she was definitely, I believe, pregnant at that time. And she was still in her teens, wasn't she? When she had gone to Gary and confessed that she knew
that was 2003 and she was born in 85.
So 18.
Okay, thank you for that quick math. Yeah. I love that.
I didn't win a math award in high school. So
I like that I didn't even try. I was just like, I'm going to throw out the dates and I'm going to let that walk-in calculator over there just figure it out for us.
Namaste.
Like, nope, just going to let that happen.
But so she's 18, she's growing up. And I mean, all of this happened again when she was, obviously not a legal adult. And that's a huge burden, by the way, to carry. And Absolutely. It sounded also from what the show was making it out to be, it sounded like Sandy was kind of manipulating her daughters into lying for her a lot. And that Lena was really the most outspoken one who was like really defensive of her mom. And I'm sure that's why she carries so much guilt and wanted to come clean. But it's interesting to me that Gary recorded it. Like, did he have an inkling? But Excuse me. So sorry. There's so many names and so many people.
It's Albert, a lot of people in this.
Isn't that interesting though, that he decided to secretly record that conversation?
I don't know if he had an inkling, I think, that Sandy was involved.
Right.
And I think in his mind, like he says in the show, like, well, I had this new recorder, which I find adorable he was very excited about this new technology.
Of course.
But I think maybe he was just like, you know what? I think she did it. If this girl is going to admit to me, I want to get it on tape so that I can go to the police thinking if I give that to the police, that'll be enough for them to get her.
Right.
Because he wants, justice for his brother.
Of course. And I mean, it's so sad too, because they painted this picture of Lena as being this kind of like scrappy little kid, really like mouthy, outspoken, but like in a kind of adorable way. And then her one friend, this really stuck with me. Her one friend was talking about how she didn't even drink. She didn't do drugs. She was like super against that stuff. But then as she got a little bit older, she kind of got into that a little bit. And I'm like, well, there's nothing like partially witnessing a murder of your stepdad and then having your mother force you to lie about it to make anybody turn to the bottle. I feel like that's 100%. Reasonable. But they did kind of intimate that when she got pregnant with her son, she really did clean up her act. She was working. He was like really her priority. And it's so sad that this is how things turned out for her.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was still having like legal troubles, we'll say it, when she had her son. The thing is, in my mind, they're just like light legal troubles, if light is a thing.
Sure.
Basically, at the time, it was like the cops pulled her over because the car wasn't properly registered, and she got fined for it.
Okay.
And then they pulled her over again a year or so later. Car is not registered again because it had happened before. They put her in jail for 4 days. So I'm guessing in this time, Sandy, her mother, was like, I'll take the child, whatever, because at the time I don't believe she was with the child's father.
Right.
At the time. So grandmother, of course, steps in and is like, I'll take the child. And apparently they had all kinds of fights where Sandy kind of felt she was the better person. She should have custody of this child. She'd been saying for years she wanted a baby, specifically a boy. Apparently, her and Gary were going to try and have a kid. The doctor told her if she has another child, she'll probably die because she'd already had 6 by this point. And so Gary was kind of upset about this, but was just like, they had at least 8 or 9 daughters between the two of them. I think
it's enough.
I think it was good. And so it was just at that point, like already wheels working of just, she wants this boy. She never got a boy and it just never left. And then she was crazy about this child and not in a positive way. Like there was a point where Lena was taking her son to go see his biological father in like Arkansas or something like that. And when Sandy heard about it, she calls her on the phone screaming, you have to bring him back. You have to bring him back. If you don't bring him back, I'll kill myself. Oh, like that feels like a level of like, you're too involved. You need to back out.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, and yeah, that's like a level of obsession and dependence and all of the above. And again, another sign of a personality disorder. Threatening suicide is on the list. I like to read about mental illness.
I respect it.
Thank you very much.
That's your research for this.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, well, at least. It's the least I can do. But yes, so that's interesting. So Lena was only in jail for 4 days, and she took Coulter, the son, and then was basically like, I would be the better mother, whatever. Like Lena didn't spend additional time in jail, did she?
No, not that I saw, no. But also, like, there were points near the time when, this would have been years later, when Lena, just before she went missing, Sandy, in a grocery store, was introducing the son as her own son. Oh, like she was just like, hey, this is Coulter, he's my son. And Lena was like, oh, okay, nope. And she comes over and freaks out on her and is like, this isn't.
Well, I do know they also said in the episode that she did make him call her mom.
Yeah.
Technically being the grandmother. But I want to take a quick pause and acknowledge the fact that we are shaming somebody for referring to a family member as a different title than what they actually are. And we literally tell everyone we're sisters and we are cousins. So I feel like, but you know what? Once again, no one's getting hurt.
Okay? Who are we harming?
No one's getting harmed.
Who are we harming?
Yeah. No one.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, touche.
I gotta go see it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I'm going to come back with, as a mother, you go through so much to be a mother. Some women go through so much more than others. But just from even the most basic of pregnancy, from like point A to B, getting that child out, it's a lot. Yeah. So you have earned the title of mom.
Of course.
And for this bitch to come in and just decide, oh no, I'm going to he's going to call me mom. I'm going to tell people I'm his mom. Like, that's such an overstep.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I think we're adorable. I think
we are.
We are,
frankly. But you're right, because even if it's an adoptive parent, for example, at that point, a parent has gone through so much. I mean, people talk all the time. The adoption process is so stressful. You're right. When you've got your child, no matter whether you've birthed it, you've adopted it, whatever, that's your kid. Yeah. And for someone else to try and swoop in like that, you're right. Mm-hmm. That is really, and it does speak again to a real level of mental illness, which is still out. The jury is out, but I'm going to figure it out by the end of this episode, what I really think her mental disorder diagnosis is. But okay, so let's step back for a second. So Sandy is married to Gary.
Yeah.
She meets someone at work named Chris. Yeah. They start a relationship, and then they were thinking, kill Gary together. So tell me what you know about Chris.
Well, here's the thing. At the time that they meet in March of 99. So at this point, she's been married to Gary for like 2 years, 4 months-ish.
Right.
And he at the time she's 32, Chris is 22.
Oh no.
Now 22-year-old boys, my God, they're not the brightest. They'll do pretty much anything.
Yes.
Also, at the time when they met, he was married.
Stop.
He was married.
Oh my gosh.
His wife will come into play in my research. So they meet. Sandy comes home, tells her oldest daughter, Brandy, that she's like, I met the cutest guy. I'm really nervous because he doesn't know I have kids. So the first time Brandy met Chris, Sandy was like, okay, this is my coworker, Brandy. Like, instead of being like, this is my daughter, she was like, meet my coworker, because she didn't want him to know that she had children, because she's obviously knowing that a 22-year-old is going to be like, 6 kids. See ya. Like, he's going to be
justifiably.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Like, I'm terrified of the thought of 6 children. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to have 20 children, by all means.
It's your business. It's not up to us, okay?
We're not judging that. We're just judging this bitch.
That's the quote. We're not judging that. We're just judging this bitch. I love it. That could be the catchphrase for all of these episodes. Yeah, okay. So she's lying. She doesn't tell him that she has kids. Can I also just comment also that how toxic and inappropriate it is for this mom to be telling her teenaged daughter, who, again, this mom is married to Gary, and then she's like, I met the cutest guy at work, I'm so nervous, whatever. Like, what messaging are you sending to your daughters that it's like cool to cheat on your husband and lie and all of those? I mean, these girls really didn't stand a chance with this mother.
Oh my God. Well, and also Sandy she also at one point, now keep in mind, they meet in March. Gary goes missing in May. So there's not a lot of time in between there. So at some point in there, Sandy tells Chris that she's pregnant with his baby. What? And that Gary is beating her.
What?
I would like to preface this by saying neither of those were true. Gary was not an abusive man. She also was not pregnant. But also I love that he's dumb enough that she's like, I'm pregnant. And I mean, early on, you just, I guess, take her for her word. But like, the fact that she would know it was his, like, so she's painting the picture of like, him and I aren't together in that way anymore.
Right. Yes.
He beats me, whatever.
Right.
And then at one point, like, when he goes missing, well, actually, let's jump back to this first, because this was not on the show, which is my favorite thing to do on this. So at one point, Gary and a friend of his, Jeff, they're like, we're gonna go hunting. And so Jeff shows up at his house. She's like, yeah, let's do this. And he's like, no, actually, we're not actually going hunting. He took a tracking collar for the dogs that you put on a dog when you take them hunting, I guess, so that you can always find them. I don't know how it works. I barely know how technology works at all anyway.
Right.
So he takes one of these tracking collars and he attaches it to part of the truck. And then him and Jeff get into a different vehicle and wait. And then the truck leaves. They follow the truck and end up finding Sandy and Chris in the truck together in the middle of nowhere doing God knows what.
Oh my God.
So Gary sees this, not a fan.
Sure.
As you would be.
Right.
So he sees this. He tells Chris, it's your lucky day. The next time I find this happening, you won't be so lucky. And you know what? I get it. You make that threat. Let him know this is my wife.
Right.
Go away. So whatever. This did not stop the relationship that went on because Chris and Sandy continued on, of course. At one point, Gary told a work supervisor that he wanted a divorce and he was going to be moving out. He was secretly moving stuff to his friend Jeff's house, just possessions of his that he was like, I really need you to take this because I don't know what she's going to do. Also, one of those items he took over there was his gun. He was like, I need you guys to take this gun. Because who knows what she's going to do. At one point, she shot him, but the shell didn't discharge properly. So that essentially saved his life. Apparently, also a week before he disappeared, Sandy tried to poison him with Drano, but it didn't work.
What? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. And then
that's a tough one too. Like I think it's pretty tough to clear up, like to mask the flavor of Drano. Oh my God.
Yeah. Why is the stew blue? I don't know. Like, it's a weird, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like, she tried shooting him, that incident with the shell that didn't discharge, that was like April 30th. And then like a week later, she tried poisoning him, didn't take. And then a week later less than a week later, like on the 11th, he goes missing. And she claimed he went off to Diamond or whatever to go get this bird he shouldn't have done anything with. And two of her daughters claimed later they saw his truck at the house the night that she claims he had left. But she also didn't she didn't tell the police about it.
And I think Lena, I might be wrong, but I think she said that she either saw or knows that she shot him multiple times. And then they also knew that they burned the body. So what's interesting to me is that, and look, I am not judging Gary, not judging him, but this woman has put a gun to you, pulled the trigger, and then it jammed, which is the only reason why you didn't get shot and probably killed. She also slipped Drano into something you were eating or drinking, trying to kill you. Like, I don't know that I would be going back to that house by myself ever again, you know?
Honestly, I think she would have lost me at the gun.
I think this is a one strike and you're out situation, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm also like, who knows? Maybe there's not a lot of ladies around that area.
Sure.
Maybe he like genuinely loved her so much and was just like, this is just a personality trait I'm going to have to work around.
A personality disorder trait. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he was just like, you know what? This is my wife. I want to try and work this through. And maybe he didn't fully actually process what was happening. Like, she shot him, but nothing actually happened. So maybe in his brain, he was like, she didn't even know there was a shell in it. She didn't, whatever. She was just trying to scare me, whatever.
Right.
And it seemed like he was just like, there's no way, like, you're not getting the house. Although he had told people he was willing to leave. But it seems like she was like, no, I want the house, because where else would she go?
Well, what else is her motive for killing him?
Well,
is it that he was refusing to get a divorce? Because it sounds like he had gone to work and said that he was definitely getting a divorce.
Oh, so he wanted a divorce. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know unless it was like life insurance money or, like you're saying, keeping the house. I don't know what other motive she would have had to kill him. I mean, she had done this to many other men and not killed them.
True. I think she had told a coworker of hers that she was explaining about like all these problems she was having with Gary, most of which I'm sure weren't true, because she's very well known. It's documented. She's quite a liar. She tells people what they want to hear.
Right.
She always makes herself the victim to get whatever she wants. So she told this woman at work that like all these problems, and this woman was like, so if it's so bad, divorce him.
Right.
Like, just leave him. To which she said, oh, he's not getting a dime. So I think she was like, she wanted out of it because she'd already been like, I've already got him. I bagged him. I'm ready to move on to the next one. And I think for her, it was a case of, she has 6 kids. She's her current paramour, if I may go that far.
You may.
He's 22 years old and married to somebody else, so he didn't exactly have a place that they could all go.
Right.
So if Gary kicked her out, where the hell would they go? So I think she was like, you know what? I want this house. We have a good setup here. I just want him to leave. And so she essentially just made him leave.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
And what I find interesting too is that they talked to one of the detectives on the episode, and he was talking about that they wanted to question the kids, but again, that Lena was like just vicious in terms of protecting her mom, and that he was like, and it's so ironic that then she was the one that ended up getting killed, but she was very like difficult and really had a lot of anger towards the police and stuff like that, and they just didn't have any evidence. And then he said something, and I wrote this down because I was like, oh my gosh, this is chilling. He said, knowing and proving are two different things, which I thought is such a, catchphrase, again, that you could use for unsolved mysteries in general. Knowing and proving are two different things. But what that brings me to is the civil suit that Gary's kids filed, because they were like, clearly he was killed by Sandy and probably this guy, Chris. And they won that civil suit. They won $7 million, but they still haven't seen a dime. And I don't understand how that works. Like I don't know why she can get away with not paying that. But anyway, and it's wild to me that a court of law can find you literally liable for someone's death. That it's like, yes, you killed this person, you're guilty, but then it won't stand up in criminal court. Yeah.
And really, most of this, like, where on earth is she going to get $7 million? Like, she's not going to have that money.
But I don't know why they don't force the person to like sell off assets, or like that they should be getting on some sort of payment plan or something. Like, I'm shocked that there's no kind of recourse.
Yeah. I'm just going to go and make up that there's a backlog.
That seems pretty plausible, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, this whole civil suit thing is insane to begin with. Kudos to them for even going through with it. But like, when Gary first went missing, she didn't tell the cops he was missing. The cops, now on the show, it says that Gary's cousin Robert contacted police and was like, Gary is missing.
Right.
From my understanding, the cops responded to a cattle call, which is apparently literally just his cows got loose.
Oh, okay.
And so people were like, oh, Gary's cows. And so they called the police. Police showed up to get the cows, put them in, get them put where they're supposed to. And while they were there, Sandy was like, well, I guess while you're here, I should tell you he's missing. And at this point, he'd already been supposedly missing for 2 days.
Right.
So the fact that she didn't even bother is what kills me. Days later, they find his truck on an abandoned road that is not coming or going from this place he was supposed to be going. So not even close. And then they get a search warrant for the farm. When they show up with the search warrant, the barn has been cleaned out and painted. They go in the house, and it looks like it used to have carpet, and the carpet has recently been ripped out. Mm-hmm. And they said that there is no sign, there's no clothing, no personal belongings. They could not even find DNA of Gary in that house. And this is like less than a week after he supposedly left.
Whoa.
So it's like, nobody cleans that crazy after somebody leaves. Like, you don't even clean like that when you leave your apartment, to let somebody else deal with it. So it's just the fact that they went that crazy to make it seem like he didn't exist. It's just.
And didn't Chris move in like days later?
Oh, also? He moved in while they were like, before they did the search warrant, because they went in and they found nothing of Gary's, but they found a checkbook that belonged to Chris, and Chris moved in like 2 days into their investigation.
Where's his wife in all of this?
Well, I did want to get to the wife. So as far as I know, living somewhere else. I don't know, but I don't understand the relationship that was happening here.
Right.
Because she knew that her husband, Chris, was off banging somebody else.
Right.
She claims she drove him to Gary's farm one day to drop him off and like picked him up later that night. And he was, as she says, quote, as scared as could be. And he made sure to have his gun on him at all times. And this was about the day that Gary went missing. Also, before that happened, I should have said this because this is fantastic for the case, not in general, but for the case.
Yes.
So this Chris's wife, Jennifer is her name. She told police that at one point her and Chris were fighting, and Chris just yelled at her, "I can't worry about this stuff right now. I've got to worry about killing a man." So
wow,
there's that. Now, here's the other thing that I feel like I should bring up at this point, which I was going to say for later.
No, bring it up.
The oldest daughter, Brandy.
Yeah.
She is very vocal about the fact she does not in any way blame Chris for what happened.
Really?
Yeah, I found it surprising too, but then she explained and it kind of made sense. So in her mind, at this point, when Chris first comes into this relationship, he's like 22.
Right.
Young and dumb, barely knows anything. He's cheating on his current wife. It's a whole thing. At this point, Sandy is telling Chris, "I'm pregnant with your baby, and my husband is beating me." So Chris is like, well, I've got to do something to protect her and my child, right?
Right. Good point.
And by she, Brandy thinks that he came over to the house. He thinks that maybe Sandy like was hysterical and was like, he's beating me, he's gonna kill me, whatever. He comes over to the house with a gun, thinking I'm gonna do something. She's convinced that Gary was dead when Chris arrived, and that Sandy was like, it was self-defense, he was hurting me, whatever. And she made him kind of help her get rid of the body. And probably seeing that dead body freaked him right the fuck out, which understood.
Well, he's not the one with the personality disorder.
Yeah, right? So I think because all of that went down and he was freaking out, it makes sense with the ex-wife being like, I picked him up. He was terrified. He kept a gun on him for days, because I think at this point he realizes, oh shit, I stuck my dick in crazy, which is the number one rule you tell boys from a very young age. Well, not very young.
Have you had that conversation with your kids? Don't stick your dick in crazy.
Okay, duly noted. No, I have not. But I'm
kidding.
I guess I just felt it was a very well-known, like,
of course,
for like the last decade or so.
Yes.
It's always been like it came out one night drinking with a group of friends where somebody made a comment like, "Oh, that girl's crazy." And I was like, "Oh, she's pretty though. So if you're looking for just like one night, maybe." And they were like, "Oh, I'd never stick my dick in crazy." And all the guys were like, "Oh, you don't do it." So it was like maybe I just have a really strange friend group.
Or very, very evolved ones in some ways. It was not worth it.
Yeah, they were like, "No, you don't do it." And so I think at this point, he was like, holy shit, I'm in with this. Who knows? Maybe at this point, he still thinks she's pregnant. And he's like, well, I'm stuck with her. I'm going to do the right thing. And it's like, well, who knows? If she killed him, she could possibly kill me. So he was just like, I'll do whatever she wants so I don't piss her off. So I think that's the reason he helped. I mean, I still think it's garbage that he did help.
Of course.
And he was charged with conspiracy to commit murder in June of that year, like 2 weeks after Gary went missing. Because they also claim that he tried to hire somebody, a friend of his, to kill Gary.
Oh.
Because again, I don't think he could do it himself. And
interesting.
I don't feel like I could either. So I get it. But they did charge him, but the charges were dropped because of no evidence.
Wow.
So I think he did help with getting rid of the body. I don't think he wanted to help. I don't think he liked it. God, I hope he didn't like it. God, that was awful. Why'd I have to swing that way? I just think he was part of it, whether he liked it or not.
Right.
And
He was
just
in too
went
deep.
along. Yeah, I think he just didn't know what else to do and just went along because who knows what she's capable of, because she's already proven she'll kill.
Right.
So I think that was it. And she had Lena come in and help her clean the house. School records even show that Lena was missing from school the day after Gary supposedly disappeared. So, and she,
wow.
in her confession to Albert, which is a lot longer than the show let you know.
Of course.
In her confession, she told him like she spent 2 days cleaning the house to get rid of all of it. So of course, when the cops show up days later, there's no speck of Gary in there because they cleaned everything out.
Right.
The fact that she had her child help her is gross.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful.
But from my understanding, it seems like, like Sandy put her through this terrible thing. Lena's just kind of like, I'm gonna keep defending my mother, even though she's clearly psychotic. And then cops are like, we want to know like what's going on. And Lena's like, nope, my mother's fine, leave her alone. Because in her mind, if they take her mother, nobody's going to take all 6 girls. They're going to get put in the system and they're going to get separated, and the odds of them finding each other again, who knows?
Well, and also like there's a lot to be said for the level of mental abuse that a mother who is constantly asking her kids to lie for her, and I think that there's a pretty high level of emotional toxicity and abuse. There's really no way around it. I mean, so again, I can completely understand how a kid or a teenager in that position, like she would feel like she has to obey her mother, that she can't cross her. I mean, again, she knows she's killed. So to your point also about Chris, it's like, imagine being the kid of someone who, your mom killed somebody. It's like, I would probably not want to go against her either. And again, yes, to the point, she had so many siblings. She was trying to keep everybody together, which is so sad. But then
the youngest ones were just like babies at that point. The youngest ones were like maybe 2-3 years old at the most. So they wouldn't have had a clue what was going on.
Right.
And for the sake of just keeping them all together, then you just
look, I get it. But then, so how much time passes between Gary's murder and when Lena had the baby? Is it a few years?
Gary was May of 1999, and she had the baby in 2003. She confessed to Albert in like June of 2003 and had the baby, I want to say like November.
Yes.
I'm going to find in my notes if that's accurate or not, and I'll be pissed if it's not.
No, I'm pretty sure it is. because I know it was she was clearly pregnant. That was what stuck with me, is that she was definitely pregnant when she confessed. And so that confession was not actually able to be used in the civil suit for whatever reason, but it was prior to the civil suit that Lena goes missing, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So,
right. Well, Lena going missing is a whole other, if I may bring my non-quote back from last time, it's a whole other bag of worms.
Hard to hold. A bag of worms. If
I say it enough times, it'll
become a thing.
Statement.
Of course.
Because Lena goes missing in early 2006, and the civil suit is brought like in June of that year.
Wow. I mean, it's so sad. And so Sandy tells other people that Lena's taken off and run off to Florida with some guy and left the kid. And Brandy was saying in the episode that it was like, I know who Lena was talking to at that time. She was absolutely not talking to someone in Florida. She absolutely would not have just taken it up and left her child. But there's no sign was there anything that was found? Like the way it makes it sound in the episode is that there was just no sign of her, no sign of any foul play of any kind. And of course, no body, no remains, no nothing.
Here's the thing. So Lena, the boyfriend she was living with at the time, he was her fiance.
Oh, wow.
Right? So they're living in this apartment. he says that in the morning she comes out, she kisses him goodbye. They have like a see you tonight, whatever. He goes to work. He comes home. He finds Sandy in their apartment boxing up Lena's stuff. Her and a couple of friends just boxing all of Lena's shit. And he's like, hey, what's going on? She says, Lena took off. She went to Florida with some man driving a black Chevy Cavalier, but yet all of her clothes were there, all of her possessions, and the big one, she left her son. And everybody who knew her was like, she would do anything for that child. She was trying to, make her life better for this child. So there's no way she would ever go anywhere without him. And her and Sandy had such a huge, I guess, like contemptuous relationship, especially involving this child.
Right.
That there's no way she would be like, you know what, I'm going to leave. Yes, you can have him.
Right.
Like there was such a battle with them. So there's no way she would easily have just been like, take the child, especially with, how much they argued.
Right.
So the fiance, Jason, just is like, well, Lena's not here. I have to just assume he just believes the story because what else can he do? Months, few weeks go by. He moves out because I guess just doesn't want to live there anymore. I don't know the full situation. The landlord comes in to clean out the unit. Now, there was a broken window, apparently. I don't know if that's really that significant, but they said there was a dark colored stain on the carpet that could not be shampooed out. The landlord's comment was, did they kill a dog here? Which is
Jesus.
Insane. Now, the landlord had heard that Lena left town, so he didn't know that Lena was actually mysteriously just disappeared.
Right.
So he just went, well, this can't be that bad. And he threw the carpet away and thought nothing of it. Since then, a fire has completely destroyed that apartment. So who knows about that?
Whoa.
Now, here's the thing. This stain on the carpet. So, it seems like it's probably a blood stain, right? Well, there was a Reddit post by somebody who has a handle that is like Brandy Peterson's name, the oldest daughter. And it's saying, let me correct things as I'm her oldest daughter. So full admits to who she is, saying the blood stain in the apartment was not from the murder. It was a miscarriage that my sister had less than a year prior to her disappearance. So I find that interesting, but also that was a newly created account, and that's the one and only thing that they've ever posted. So it's so easy for somebody else to go in there and be like, yeah, it was nothing.
Right.
But at the same time, if there was a large stain, wouldn't the fiance have noticed?
Well, and here's where my brain is going. Have they properly investigated this fiance? Because if he's the last one to see her alive, and we don't believe anything that Sandy says anyway, because she's a liar, she's a narcissistic,
100%.
Borderline personality disorder. I'm still figuring it out, but it's something.
I like it.
If he's the last one to see her alive, and there's this huge blood stain that isn't it feasible? Here we go. Isn't it feasible that he could have killed her and then either gone along with whatever this story is? Because is it feasible that Sandy was like, oh, she's dead? Great. Now I can have this kid. I'll help you cover up this murder. I've done it before.
Interesting. I guess it's possible. He is openly still giving interviews about it.
Really?
His record
hiding
seems
in plain sight.
Well, his record is clean. So I love that. To me, that means he's good. That's a solid point. I assume he was at work that day. I would like to believe the cops followed up on that, but to be fair, how can they? Because the cops didn't know she was missing at that point.
Right. And they have no time of death. They have no body. So he could have killed her the night before, the day before. There's a million places where this could fall apart. Here's my theory. I'm going to jump ahead and give you my theory right now about this one.
Please.
My theory is this, or I don't know whether this did or didn't happen, but a theory, let's put it that way, is he and her get into some sort of fight. It gets physical, whatever. Accidentally, she gets killed. And he's like, holy fuck, what the fuck do I do? Sandy either happens upon them or they somehow he contacts her or something. And she's like, look, I got you. Let's do this. I'll help you clean this up. I'll help you, whatever. But I'm taking the kid. And this is what our story is. We got to get our story straight. Because I'm sorry, but if you're engaged to someone and you come home into your own home and your partner's parent is there and is like, oh, I'm boxing up all her stuff because she's gone. Like, would you really just be like, okay, like that just feels impossible to me. Why isn't he like searching for her? Why isn't he like devastated? Why isn't he putting out missing posters, you know?
That's a good point. That is a good point. I mean, I don't know. I always go back to, I don't know how smart a lot of guys are. I say that as a woman who lives with all men.
Yeah, four.
I have a lot of boys in my home. And I mean, you've got a great point. Like maybe Sandy stopped by because she was supposed to take the kids so Lena could go to work that day or something. I mean, yeah, I don't know. He moved out of the place. So, I mean, it's right to see that as sketchy. I saw it as just like he couldn't handle to be there, or maybe simply couldn't afford the rent without her. I don't know how it worked. But
I don't know, like call me crazy, but if this happened, if I was him, if I was a fiance, I would be freaking the fuck out. I wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. Like, I don't know. There's something that seems odd there to me. And it does feel, because again, it also feels like, are we believing, like, why wouldn't she have killed Lena sooner? Like, why now? Like, what motive does she have in that moment that she wouldn't have had a month prior or a month later? Like, it just feels like there's like some piece there, and that she would have been happy to help him cover up because she wants that kid. Now, this also does kind of dovetail. Yeah, I said it. Dovetail
nice.
Into the one other thing that I did want to touch on very quickly, which is, after all was said and done, Brandy confronted her mother and was like, I know that you killed Lena. I know that you killed Gary. And then it was at this point that Sandy and Chris piled Brandy into a truck. They drive in the middle of nowhere. Chris pulls a gun on Brandy.
Yeah.
And basically Brandy like claims to like run into the cab of the truck and like hug her mom and be like, please don't let him kill me. And then eventually she was like, don't hurt my baby. So there's a lot of things I want to unpack here. One, is Chris as innocent as we thought? Two, I guess maybe Sandy is more willing to kill a child than we thought. But then three, why didn't they do it? Why didn't they follow through?
Well, Brandy, again, in her commenting on she doesn't believe Chris did anything wrong. Well, she doesn't, not that she doesn't believe he did anything wrong. It's more she doesn't blame Chris for anything that went down.
Right.
So Sandy and Chris were talking about going to St. Louis. Brandy wanted to go. They were like, no, you're not coming. She threw a fit because she's fucking like 14, 15-year-old girl. We're gonna fight about everything.
Right.
So she freaked out and was like, I know what you've done, whatever. Lena overhears this, freaks out because she had confessed to Brandy and made Brandy like pinky swear never to say a thing, because again, she's concerned about all the sisters being separated at this point. So she overhears Brandy telling her mom, and it's something she swore she never would do. So Lena comes in full charge, shoves Brandy into a mirror. It shatters and cuts open Brandy's hand. So Brandy is like, I'm bleeding. I need to go to a hospital. So Sandy and Chris are like, get in the truck. We'll take you. And they get about so many miles. And she's like, we didn't take the turnoff. What are you guys doing? And that's how they end up in the truck in the middle of the night, because I felt they didn't really explain that.
No, because I thought that it had happened after Lena had died.
No, this was, Lena was still around. This was, they're all still living together.
Interesting.
Gary had gone missing. And so Brandy says there was so much time that Chris could have shot her and didn't, and she felt he was very hesitant. So after the whole situation, she's in the truck. It's like, no, he's not going to hurt you. They go back to the house. Chris and Sandy go in the bedroom. They send Brandy to her room, or the room she shares with the other girls. About half an hour later, Sandy comes and gets her and is like, I want you to come in here and talk to us. And she said her mother looked just normal, like she normally does. Chris looked like he had been crying and like losing his mind. He was shaking. And she had that moment of, I want you guys, like, we're good, right? And so Brandy thinks that was like Chris. She thinks when they got in the truck that Sandy was like, you have to fucking kill her. She's going to tattle on us. Tattle. I don't, you know, you know what I meant.
She probably used the word rat because it feels a little more badass. You know? She's going to rat on us. She's going to rat us out.
You're right. Because if somebody says there might be a tattletale, it's a whole other vibe.
It's usually not about murder.
Yeah, very true. So she's like, she's gonna tell, she knows what we've done. She's gonna tell, you have to kill her. And I think it was, he didn't want to.
Right.
And then it was, he didn't. And she was just like, okay, well, now she knows we're willing to do it. So as long as she won't, as long as we're that level, then that's fine. When Lena's confession, Albert took it to the cops and was like, can you do anything? They then went to Sandy and explained the situation. And Sandy was like, sorry, here's my lawyer. And because Lena's underage, Lena can't do anything for herself at this point.
Right.
So it was, they've got lawyers, they can't do anything. So I think your reasoning of why that point in time, I honestly think, I mean, I'm not saying the fiance is completely innocent. Who knows? You bring a valid point. He could be part of this. I think Sandy chose the time she did because Lena was going to be 21 soon, which meant that she legally could go to a cop and be like, I have to confess something that happened when I was a kid and tell them everything and get Sandy charged with murder. And I think it was just an opportune moment of, I want this child. Like Brandy says that a week before Lena went missing, she thinks that Sandy tried to poison her because Sandy and Lena and the son were at a store, and out of nowhere, Lena just suddenly was like, I'm so sick. I'm dizzy. I can't see my hands in front of my face. I have to go home. And the next day she had like a really terrible headache. So they're convinced that she had poisoned her, not unlike the Drano incident with Gary. And it just didn't take.
Right.
And I think at this point, I think that Sandy was just like, you know what? She's going to be old enough that she could get me into some serious trouble. And I want that kid, because especially if you're going to take a child, and this is the creepiest thing I've said, if you are going to take a child and try and like completely raise them, making them think you're their parent, you need to get them away. This is not a how-to, by the way. You need to get them.
We are not endorsing this. We will endorse a lot, but you will not wear a hat endorsing this.
Absolutely. Well,
I found the line.
No, you did. You did. You're right. But I mean, you can't wait until the kid's old enough that he knows, like, where you're like, I'm your mother. And he's like, no, you're not. And so the older that kid's getting, the more she's like, I've got to if I'm going to do this, I have to do it soon. And I think she just hit her moment of, I'm sick of not having this child. I want to have this child, and freaked out. And then like a couple months later, 3 or 4 months maybe, they get the summons about the civil suit filed by Gary's daughters. And that was the moment. This was now June. Lena had gone missing on Valentine's Day of all, which again feels like a real extra dick move. So could be right that he could be involved. I don't know. But the civil suit comes forward, and then the cops go to give the summons to Lena, and Lena's not there, and they're like, what's going on? And Sandy's like, oh yeah, she left. She's in Florida. So that's the first point the cops have ever heard that Lena's not around. So they can never give her this summons. I mean, this is 2006, and it's not, they didn't even go to court until 2013 with this civil suit.
I'm sorry to harp on the fiance, but
please.
It just seems odd to me that he just was like, okay. Like, doesn't that seem weird that he wasn't like to me, if my partner's parent came to me and said, oh, just kidding, I know you thought you were in a loving relationship, but he left you today and has gone to Florida with someone, like, I would be calling, I would be texting, I would be demanding answers. I would probably at some point go to the police and be like, my partner is missing.
Well, that does feel like the smart thing to do.
Right?
But
it just feels odd to me that they were like, this is the first we had known about this. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm completely wrong here, but that just seems really like unbelievable behavior. If you're with somebody and you love them enough that you're engaged, if it was just like a passing thing, okay. But it just feels weird.
True. And I will see that, and I will raise you I don't know how long they were together. It is more fair. Like, it's more than possible that it was like they were together for mere months, and he was just like, well, may as well put a ring on it. Like, I'm sure he loved her, but it's more than possible that he was just like sold, done, and early on in that relationship. So I'm not saying he's not guilty.
But you're not saying he is. I just want to know.
Let go that it wasn't her 100%. I
know.
I want it to be her, and that's a sick thing to say out loud.
No, and listen, she's done a murder already that we know about. It feels like all signs point to her. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying she's completely not involved, but I just feel like I would love to know how much they've looked into this fiance character. Listen, last thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up is the other thing is that they feel like maybe the body, because I think we're pretty certain that they burned Gary's body. There was Robin, the one daughter, seemed pretty adamant that had happened, and that's why they never found any remains. But in terms of Lena's body, there was a conversation about in the episode that they were like, there was an old well on this one property that they had. And when they went to visit that property, they're like, oh, the well's gone. And I agree with you. You pointed out, you sent to me earlier, it was like, doesn't it feel like there's like a circle in the grass right there? And in a later scene, they show an expert with what essentially looked like a high-tech metal detector that's detecting for bones or something, or human remains, or like showing that the ground has been. And then I was like, why doesn't he put that over this other property? But then I was like, oh, I guess it's like it's trying to determine if the soil has been disturbed. And then I was like, is this an exact science? It just feels like it feels like maybe this is a mystery. I hate to say it, that may never be solved. What do you think?
I mean, you know how I feel about that old well. Like,
of course,
it looked like there was just that small shot of her walking through the field, trying to figure out the yard, trying to figure out where it used to be. And you could, like, I swear to God, I don't know if it was just my eye, but you could see almost a circle. And so I was like, fuck, I just wish I wanted them to take that machine over there. But at the same time, the people who live there now were allowing them there for that day. Maybe they wouldn't allow that.
Well, but also
because if they find something, they'd dig it up their yard.
But the machine was looking for disturbed ground. Like it wasn't actually telling you. So if it's a well, then arguably the ground is disturbed because there's a well in there. Right. So unless they figured out exactly where the well was and dug up the well, I don't even think we need that guy's tool now that I think about it. But it seems odd to me. I mean, I don't know. I'd let somebody dig up my yard to look through an old well if it was going to like potentially find a body. But again, I don't even know that it would be there. If they never found anything of Gary, then I don't know why we think that they would find anything of Lena, very sadly.
That is true. I also want to point out, because there was something in my notes that I thought you might want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So Lena goes missing. Sandy and Chris have this suit filed against them. 2 months later, Sandy goes to the police and is like, oh my God, somebody in a mask has attacked me. She had bruises on her face. They come to the house. They're looking at her. She has bruises. So they're like, oh, okay, she was attacked. And then she's like, I just want you to know it was Gary. So she's like, she was like, Gary did it. He's not dead. He's just hiding somewhere. So the cops were like, uh-huh. And they go to the house. There's no footprints in the like sand driveway leading up to the house. The place she said she was assaulted, there's no footprints of any kind that could say somebody was there. So they just kind of like blew it off. But I love that was truly her last ditch effort of like, oh, Gary's not dead. I just, somebody saw him. He tried to beat me again. And it's like, nobody's going to believe that.
Wow, that is so sad. And also, you didn't need it. Sandy, you already committed the perfect murder. Nobody found the body. There's no like, wow. I can't believe that they didn't put that in the episode. I can't believe they didn't include that because that's such a marker of guilt. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And like, as you were saying about like, they destroyed the body so you'd never find it.
Right.
Brandy says they burned it for 3 days, which feels extreme, but I guess it got the job done. But Albert, he says like he's been a farmer his whole life. If they've got like an animal that has passed, I love that I can't even say an animal has died. I had to be like, it has passed.
Of course. So
if this animal that's passed, they put it on this brush pile and they burn it. Fine. That's how it happens on the farm, sure. I have zero farm experience, just to clarify. I'm pretty sure I'm oozing it right now. And so he made the comment of, when you put a body on that pile, the big bones don't tend to burn. So he's convinced that somebody took the bones before Lena was picking out stuff, like picking up the ashes and whatever. So he's convinced that there were large chunks of the bone somewhere that somebody has disposed of somewhere. So Albert is still convinced that there's going to be proof of Gary somewhere, but there's just
if you
nothing.
Burn a bone, like cremation, like they will burn eventually, right?
Well, that's my thought. Like it has to, I guess it has to be like a specific temperature. Like if you get it hot enough,
right,
it would have to bone, right?
It would have to bone? It would have to burn.
No, you know what I meant.
I know what you meant.
It makes sense.
But again, if they were having a 3-day fire, wouldn't people have also noticed that and, I don't know, said something? Like, again, I have never lived in the country and I have never grown up on a farm, but it just feels like a 3-day long fire.
A bush pile, like a brush pile. Yeah. Like they will take, here we go. I claimed not to have experience. My grandparents lived on a farm. And there is like, again, I don't know all the details. So I was really coming in hot here, acting like an expert.
I love it.
I got to dial it back now. There is like, you have all the extra, when you take the crop out, there's all like the extra part that you don't actually sell with the crop. They have to take all of that out and put that somewhere. And usually they will start fires. And so random fires are burning at any time, who knows when.
But did they last that long?
I don't know. But also, I think they lived in the middle of nowhere. So I think most people might not have been in the area. I don't know.
That makes sense.
I just want to point out the thing that pisses me off the most. The only charge that Sandy has ever faced in connection with Gary's disappearance was for illegally selling his cows right after he disappeared. His cows were mortgaged, apparently, which I didn't know you could do with animals. Neither here nor there. But she was charged with illegally trying to sell them when they weren't hers to sell. But of course, those charges were dropped. So that's the only charge she's ever been put to her criminally in this case.
Right.
And even those, they were like, it's fine.
That's so bizarre.
It's insanity.
All right, listen, we got to wrap this up. Any final thoughts, final theories, anything left that you want to say?
I mean, I think I'm pretty I can't let go. I'm a dog with a bone. I just truly believe it was her. I'm enraged that she got away with this not once but twice. The fact that one of them was her own child is gross to me. She took the grandson, tried to raise him as her own, which is normally kind of like a sweet story, but in this case it's psychotic. It said that she changed his birth certificate to change his last name. They said that she changed the birth certificate to label herself as the mother, but I don't think that's legal. Like, I don't think you can do that.
I don't think so.
Because that feels like, if you can change something like that on a birth certificate, then
I don't think that you can. That would be something interesting to look into, but I don't think that you can. Certainly if this person is just, quote, missing, I don't think that you can automatically be like, she forfeited. Like, that doesn't
make she went to court and was like, oh, I want custody of this child. And Lena didn't show up. And the court went, well, she didn't show up. So I guess. So Sandy went running and was like, Lena's not good for this child. She does drugs. She's terrible, whatever. At one point, she told people that she was a prostitute. And so it's just like, she told whatever lies she could. And the court was like, well, Lena's going to come defend herself. Lena didn't show up. So they gave legal custody to Sandy.
Wow.
And I mean, it's gross, but I'm also slightly like really impressed. Like,
yeah.
I don't get how she did it, but the fact that she has still to this day never said that, like, she's never told police that Lena is missing. It took Lena's biological father to tell the police, hey, we need a missing person report. And that was 2.5 years later.
Years.
Yeah, it wasn't until 2008 when there was an actual police report, and it wasn't until 2012 when the police actually investigated it. So it's like it was the crime, the right time. I mean, it was the perfect storm. She knew what she wanted. The cops were like, nah, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Well, I hope that something comes out. I hope that there's some, that this Netflix, that's 3 glasses of wine for you. I hope that this Netflix attention is going to hopefully have some people come forward. I hope that, of course, Lena's killer is brought to justice. Of course, we're fairly certain that it was Sandy. But if this fiance had something to do with it, I want him brought to justice too. My final theory is actually my final diagnosis, which is borderline personality disorder with a mix of a narcissistic personality disorder, because she has all the borderline traits with the victim mentality, threatening suicide, those kinds of things. But the narcissistic personality disorder is somebody that thinks that they can get away with anything. They think that they are above the law. And here's the deal. She has been. And so I think that probably only amplifies her mental disorders and her thinking that she can do things and get away with them, because she has been. Again, you're right. Perfect storm. Listen, Christy Oxborough, researcher extraordinaire, thank you for your work on this case. This has been fabulous.
I felt like I wasn't going to have to do a lot, because we know who the killer is. We know where the killer is now, which sounds crazy to say out loud. But like, there's a legit address for her. They know where she is. Yeah. It's just the evidence. So I'm like, oh, there's not going to be much to see. Well, again.
Guess again.
I was waist deep in...
And I love you for it. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. We love all of you. If you're enjoying this, and I think you probably are, you're going to want to tune in next week, because next week we are discussing Mystery on the Rooftop. Uh-oh, did he jump? Was he pushed? What happened? Do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night, everyone.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you real soon.